Good morning, Monco. Now, come on. Good morning, Monco. Woohoo, that's better. So before I begin with my opening remarks, let's be conscientious of today's focus. Please take out your cell phones, put them on silent, turn them off. Yes, Dr. Brown is in the house, so cell phones away. Thank you. So good morning, I'm Dr. Jared Brown, and I serve as an Assistant Dean of Academic Affairs here at Montgomery County Community College, and it is my pleasure to welcome all of you to the 16th Annual Presidential Symposium on Diversity. I recognize you here that are joining us in the theater, also those that took the time to log in and are connecting with us virtually. Of course, my colleagues at the beautiful Pottstown campus, we say welcome and thank you for joining us. Now in its 16th year, the Presidential Symposium serves as a capstone event that fosters and advances meaningful conversations on diversity and inclusion among our students, employees, and of course, our community. The Presidential Symposium theme this year is Lead with Unity and Act with Purpose. Leading with unity is critical at a time when division is rising and creating conflict within our communities. To overcome these obstacles, we must act with purpose and intention and lead and support one another through these challenging times. Since its inception in 2010, the symposium has featured an array of amazing distinguished speakers, including author and educator Dr. Lorene Carey, viral immunologist Dr. Kismakia Corbett, poet laureate and author Richard Blanco, now Governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, and most recently, Roberto Clemente Jr., among others. In recent years, thanks to the efforts of the Office of Equity, Diversity, and Belonging, campus-wide partners, and the leadership of Dr. Stephanie Allen Savage, Director of Equity, Diversity, and Belonging, the symposium has evolved to include an array of events and programs and activities, including workshops, book clubs, essay contests, and community service projects, engaging our community in several months leading up to this event throughout the academic year. And for the first time this year, you all had a say in who would be our symposium speaker. So thank you for giving your voice to having our great speaker here today. This year's symposium embodies the three pillars of the college's strategic plan: ensure student learning, enhance employee experience, and expand community participation. For our students, we encourage personal growth and learning through an essay contest centered on the symposium theme. We received many submissions of well-written entries, and I want to thank every student that took the time to submit something. But congratulations goes to our student, Caitlin Buhecker, whose outstanding essay was selected by a panel of Monco community members as the winning entry. Congratulations, Caitlin. So the essay is included in the digital program, and at your leisure, I encourage you to take a few moments and read the work written by Caitlin. Also included in this year's program are outstanding faculty-led workshops. The first was hosted yesterday by Rachel Ashone, a member of our psychology faculty, where she discussed the importance of equitable assessment methods that centered around student success. And tomorrow, Mary Beth Cunert, a member of our English faculty, will present her research on the interconnectedness of empowerment and education of women through literature in the modern day. Again, all details of these workshops can be found in your digital program. And here we are today, expanding community participation by welcoming all of you to this incredible keynote presentation. I hope that today's program motivates you to lead with unity in your own life and always understand your why. The symposium is an important work and would not be possible without the visionary guidance and leadership of our president. It gives me a great honor to introduce to you our 6th president of Montgomery County Community College, Dr. Vicky Bistecki-Perez.
Thank you, Jared. And welcome, everyone. On behalf of the entire Monco family, our supportive Board of Trustees, talented students, dedicated employees, and more than 90,000 proud alumni, I am delighted to extend a heartfelt Mustang greeting to everyone here at our Bluebell campus and those joining from our Pottstown campus and beyond through live stream. I'd like to extend a special welcome to members of our Board of Trustees, Trustee Emerita Margot Clark, Vice Chair Eleanor Desi, Dr. Terry Riley, Secretary and Chair of our Student Success Committee, and Trustee Catherine Carter. It's truly an honor and privilege to introduce today's keynote speaker, Dr. Omekongo Dibinga. Dr. Dibinga is a renowned author, rapper, poet, and motivational speaker whose life mission is, I quote, to inspire people across the globe to take a stand when they witness injustice, no matter how small or large. He's a 4-time TEDx speaker and has been featured on major news outlets, including CNN, NPR, BBC Network, among many others. His work has also reached a global audience through engagements with the United Nations and the US State Department, and his award-winning poetry and music have received audiences in more than 150 countries. Recognized as an upstander, Dr. Dibinga believes that people should be celebrated for their unique perspectives and backgrounds. His message aligns with our college's values of celebrating diversity and promoting equity when cultivating a culture of inclusion and connectedness on our campuses. The Presidential Symposium is part of Monco's ongoing commitment to foster thoughtful dialogue, leadership development, and an environment where individuals are encouraged to be engaged, informed, and empowered members of our community. I do want to give shout outs to my President's Advisory Council on Equity and Social Justice, who spearheaded this activity under the co-chair of Stephanie Allen Savage, Chara Watson, and Varsovia Fernandez, a trustee. I also want to give a shout out to our North Monco Technical High School students and their advisor from their Diversity Council. You are the leaders of the future, and it's so important that your voices are here with us today. Thank you for coming. Also, a program of this magnitude cannot be done without numerous volunteers, and our manager, Katie Simai-Ali, who has put a lot of time, energy, and heart into today's program. So please join me in thanking our volunteers and Katie. And without further ado, please join me in giving a warm Mustang welcome to Dr. Dibinga.
Thank you. All right, we are here. Space. Let's make this thing happen. You know, it has been said that we are living in the greatest nation on earth, that we are experiencing an economic prosperity never known to mankind. You see, most homes have TVs and PCs, and many believe that they will finally get that pot of gold at the end of the American rainbow. But are we really living in the best of times or the worst of times? Because through time, it has become quite evident that we have never lived in a paradise of heaven-sent proportions. For if you take portions of everyone's respective lives to form one collective memory, you will soon see that we are all living in a crazy world. For what does economic affluence mean to the man who lost his family because he fell in love with Wall Street? What do millions of dollars in reparations mean to that Holocaust survivor who would happily spend her last dime to see her family just one last time? What about that African-American soldier who was slain in World War II at the hands of a Nazi, but his family will not see his name in any of the history books? And where is heaven for that slave descendant who is yet to see his first dime after 350 years of unpaid labor? I mean, what does a chance at a great education mean, though, to that Latino who voluntarily loses his language, culture, and history in a vain attempt at assimilation? Or that Native American who, in his own nation, is refused his piece of the American pie because he arrived at the table without his reservation? What about that Korean employee working at Mickey D's who can't even be proud of a war her people could have won because she lost her unarmed son at No Gun Re? And what about brothers given the death penalty after already being sentenced to life in hell as black men in America? I mean, is there really heaven on earth for the immigrant hired help putting in maximum effort for less than minimum wage? Or that college brown brother whose blood was smothered in the case of road rage? How can you sit there happily in peace while little babies are crying and dying trapped in the middle? East meets West. Yes, in a clash of civilizations, while certain developing nations face starvation, children walking around with bloated stomachs and emaciated bodies while we walk proudly with bloated pockets and emaciated minds, wearing our $200 sweatsuit from a sweatshop run in Thailand by Reebok, too busy watching TV on our laptops that we can't hear the gats pop, pop, pop that killed Amadou, which ironically stopped just before they reached 42, which in the time of Horus or Heru meant divine judgment. You see, it's coming. So can you emerge from your matrix long enough to see that there can be no rich without poor and no peace without war? That there's only a need for Ivy Leagues as long as community colleges strive to be respected by the mainstream? That there can only be developing nations at the bottom as long as rich nations live lavishly at the top? And that there would be no billionaire record executives without negative lyrics in hip-hop? The next time you look into the mirror, stare deep into your eyes and realize that the good life for you is nothing but someone else's hell. So it's really all just a gigantic wishing well. So let all of us who have experienced success bless the world of our knowledge and not live comfortably on the edge of selfishness. For if you spend your entire life devoted to material wealth while drinking and smoking yourself into declining health, if you choose not to take the time to serve those less fortunate than we, then this crazy world will be arriving at your door much faster than you can blink and sooner than you think. All right. Good morning. Let's try it again. Good morning. Somebody repeat after me. There can only be one me. There was no me before me. There will be no me after me. And since I'm the only me that the world will see, I will be the best me that I can be for eternity. Give yourselves a round of applause. Give yourselves a round of applause. So when they say, what did you do at the symposium? They say, I learned how to rap. And then you're good. You have to do anything else after that. I wanted to share that. I was trained by an incredible motivational speaker named Les Brown. And one of the things that he taught me was that you're always going to remember the things you say to yourself more than what anybody else says to you. And so it's extremely important when we talk about acting with purpose, when we talk about leading with unity today, and we talk about this idea, we talk relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's important every single day that you affirm yourself in a world that's not trying to affirm you. That you affirm yourself in a world, in a space that's actively working to make sure that you are not affirmed. That's removing your stories from the books. That's making sure that your stories never even get told. The question I ask my audiences when I'm speaking is, what did you do to affirm yourself? Remembering that whatever we do for the first 20 minutes of our day and the last 20 minutes of our day is going to affect our energy. You know, do we have our phone, or do our phones have us? We always have the opportunity to just turn it on and turn on something negative every single moment of the day. And so if you don't take the time to affirm yourself, if you don't take the time to set your intentions for that day, then you're going to go with whatever intentions are set for you. So when we talk about leading with unity, one of the ways we start leading with unity is affirming ourselves. And why do we need to do that also? Because really at the end of the day, we have to understand that history, as it has been said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And we are in another rhyme pattern right now as it relates to the struggles against this thing we call diversity. I wanted to share that poem with you all to start. I love writing poetry, but sometimes my poetry becomes frustrating. Because the poem that I wrote, that I shared with you all just now, I wrote about 25 years ago. It's on my second album entitled Signs of the Time. The question becomes, how are we in a society continually failing to learn the lessons of the past so that the stories that we tell from the past can almost be verbatim repeated today? It's because we don't have a community like yours that is manifesting across the country, that is focused on leading with unity and acting with purpose. We need more of you. We need more soldiers for humanity. And so when we talk about this story today about how we lead with unity, one of the things that's extremely important, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later with my book, Road Towards Your Greatness as well, is that in order to really lead with unity, we have to understand that everything that we do, we have to begin from within. Now, full disclosure, I may just break out into poetry every once in a while as we go through this. Is that all right with y'all? All right, just a second. I want to make sure I got the audience approval. It's just in me, and one of the things we have to understand is we have to live what's in us. And one of the things I'm going to talk about later when we get to the book, Road Towards Your Greatness, is I talk about the importance of running towards your story and not running, as opposed to running away from your story. We live in a society that teaches us to run away from our stories, and we can never lead with unity like that. As you can tell from my name, I was born in a very faraway place called Boston, Massachusetts. Well, it's far from here. I don't think anyone's going to walk there unless y'all really want trying to get your steps in. You know, you just take a little stroll. But I grew up in a society where I was taught, because of my name, Omekongo, Luhaka, Dibinga, Wangakakese, Wachinunkasa, I was taught to run away from my story. I was told, because of what I saw on television, that my story was not powerful. Think about yourself. Think about your life. What is the story? What is the narrative that this country taught everybody else about who you are, about who your community is? Let me tell you a story about what this society taught about who my people are. You know, they say you can't judge a book by what? They say you can't judge a book by its cover. But it has become appallingly clear that you can judge an entire continent by its media coverage. You see, you can color an entire continent dark with the paint the poorly placed perception when you rely on the media to teach you your Africa lessons. Because I come from a continent that the world thinks is a country. And to put it bluntly, we're all HIV positive until proven negative in the eyes of the media. It's like Africa's either one big safari or Kalahari with seasoned heathens and no sense of religion and home to animals and animism, because TV renditions of African afflictions have created a depiction of a land of savages where the world's most dreadful diseases exceeds the law of averages. And since American TV only shows you the ravages of a select few nations, most Americans juxtapose the mother of civilization with phrases like damnation and starvation. And so until we take control of our own images, we can't expect to see a true representation of our beauty. Most non-Africans believe that the most Africa has contributed to the world are phrases like Hakuna Matata and Asante Sana Squash Banana, along with exotic vacations in remote locations, because I ain't never heard an American TV news station even say that we're made up of 55 nations. In the eyes of the media, we're just underdeveloped wannabe Caucasians, still searching for civilization, if you buy the media's interpretation of who we are. But am I taking this too far? Because to me, the real problem be the WB, ABC, and NBC, which are the real WMD, weapons of mind destruction, because most people, including many Africans, only see what they see through the smart bombs they call TV. And it's not just a newscast. It starts at like age 3, because I grew up watching images of Bugs Bunny dressed in grass skirts and blackface, speaking in African dialects. And every 10 years, there's a new version of Tarzan on the TV set, and I don't know about y'all, but I recall seeing gorillas pass for Africans in some of these cartoons. And if you remove Marvin Martian's helmet from Looney Tunes, he's probably an illegal African alien or a famine-stricken African child of his belly protruded. And it's these convoluted images that have helped create grown-up policymakers who partially base their opinions of our homeland from films such as Congo, Gorillas in the Mist and the Air Up There, and we can't forget Tears of the Sun, which left too many tears on the sons and daughters of Africa searching for a positive portrayal of who we are. But that won't happen until we as Africans take responsibility for our portrayal, because the betrayal from our friends from CBS, Fox, and CNN means that we will never see an end to these characterizations of the continent of human creation, which has to make it look like she's on her deathbed and ready for cremation. But we must show the world that our mother Africa is strong, vibrant, and defiant, because the pulse of nearly a billion people can never die once we take control of what the world sees. And so we can never comply with pictures painted by pessimists on TV of our homeland, because we, you and me, we are the pulse of Mother Africa, and we must now show the world how proudly we will stand. Thank you. Now, the question becomes, what if you were standing up here and you're Jewish? What story did the media tell this country about you? What if you're standing up here and you're Muslim? What story did this country tell about you? If you're an Asian American, if you're a Latino, history, as Napoleon said, is a lie agreed upon. You could run down the list. What has this country told us in the media about indigenous people? Run down the list. All of us have been products of creative narratives, but we're not products of community conversations. And so since we're not products of community conversations, all we have is the stories that are told to us. So when I go to school, people weren't interested in leading with unity. They were interested in, you are the African bush boogie. You are the African butt scratcher, because that's what I saw in Tarzan. That's what I saw in those, some of y'all, may not remember the 80s. You had to be there. But I was there. And so, but if you remember the Sally Struthers commercial and the starving Ethiopians and all of this other type of stuff, we're all products of narratives. Narratives designed to keep us separated. Narratives designed to make sure that we're not interested in unity. So if we want to create what Dr. King talked about as it relates to his beloved community, if we really want to put ourselves in positions to make sure that we're building an environment where everybody can indeed be celebrated and not tolerated, we have to do intentional work. What do we have to do? We have to act with purpose, because people are intentionally acting to make sure we can't do what we're doing today. In the work that I'm doing, I remember when President Obama won the election. And my work and the work that I do, I go across the country. I'm here in an incredible college space now, but I speak to children from kindergarten all the way up through high school. And at this particular time, I was at a high school in another Montgomery County in Maryland. And I remember after Obama won, and in this particular county, a lot of people were angry. I walked into the school and to do this training, and one of the administrators said, "Can you please not talk about Obama's win, because there are still teachers that are upset about his win." And I found this interesting, because I'm sitting here thinking that we have a narrative that looks at a lot of young black men as potential prisoners and possible presidents, where people more are likely to come to school wearing a Jay-Z shirt or a Tupac shirt or a Biggie shirt, not saying there's anything wrong with that. And now you see a guy who is an African American as president of the United States, and you can't Get past your feelings to teach these kids about what's possible for them. Why? Because of the narratives that we receive. Because of the narratives that we receive. So we have to do active work to break these narratives. What are you doing every single day to break these narratives? So when we talk about lead with unity, I'm a big fan of acronyms, and so I want to talk about how we can do that today. So I have a couple of models that I like to share, and the first one is called LEAD. Simply spelled L-E-A-D, and it stands for something. And what my hope is that as I'm sharing these 4 steps with you, these 4 principles with you, if you feel like you're strong in 3 of them, but you can do a little bit something better with the 4th one, then do that. If you feel like you're strong in all 4, then enhance one of them. All of us have a role to play. All of us don't have it all figured out. Because if we did, why would we need to be in this space? When I was growing up and people were calling me these different types of names and making me feel like I was inferior and making me feel like I was only worth being tolerated and not celebrated, I needed a community like this and I couldn't find it. And so when I was young, I just felt like I didn't belong. I was suicidal as a child. There were many reasons why I just looked every single day. I didn't see me represented positively, and so I just checked out of everything. And it wasn't until I started to get a little bit of my culture, get a little bit of my history, get a little bit of knowledge that wasn't taught to me, that's when everything changed, which allows me to be with you and all day today. So let's talk about this lead. The first step in lead, that L, is called listen. Everybody say listen. Say it like you mean it, listen. If we really want to talk about leading with unity and acting with purpose, as leaders in this room, it's important that we spend more time listening to each other than we do talking. We have 2 ears and we have 1 mouth, and we need to use them in proportion. There have been places where I've been in schools, talking to places, I'm sitting next to somebody, and I don't even realize that the person I'm sitting next to was a child soldier who came here from places like Liberia, maybe even Congo. I go to another place, I'm sitting next to somebody in a suburban school, and this young student starts talking and starts telling her story of being trafficked. Nobody knew, because we don't listen. We get so caught up in our own stories. We get so caught up in our own narratives. And it's not to say that what we're going through is not problematic, it's not challenging, but if we want to build community and actually lead with unity, then we got to listen. What are the stories of the people sitting next to you? What happens when you take time and you go behind the smiles to understand people's pain? People are not encouraged to share stories in this country of all backgrounds, especially we know with men as well. Where suck it up, man up, deal with it, so on and so forth. But there's pain there. What can you do to be a better listener today? In the 7th grade, I repeated the 7th grade. I was at Boston Latin School, the oldest high school, oldest public school in the country. It's older than Harvard. Like 1635 it was founded. But here's the thing. I repeated that 7th grade year. Many people, because I was a poorer black kid from the hood, people expected that. So they didn't really care. But if anyone actually took the time to listen, they would find out that during that time period, my parents, my dad went home in 2020, and my mom, went home last year. And they were activists fighting for democratic change across the globe. That particular time, my father went to Zambia and they tried to assassinate him. They bashed his head in with a crowbar. So for my entire year, my father, who was my hero, lay far away in a land I've never heard of in a coma. You think that might affect my ability to study the theorems that you're trying to teach me that day? But nobody cared. Nobody asked. And then on top of that, I'm in a society where I'm dealing with the circumstances of that thing we affectionately called a crack epidemic, where it was predicted that as a young black man, I would be dead or incarcerated before the age of 25. You think that wasn't playing on my mind also? But nobody cared because nobody was listening. What are the stories of the people sitting right next to you who come to your jobs every day, who come to work every day, who come to school every day, to your high schools every day, and they're smiling and you know nothing about what's going on behind the story? The best leaders are the best listeners. So the question I ask for you is, what can we do to be better listeners today? If we want to lead with unity, can we walk into a space and not say a word and just inhale stories? If you want to talk about finding commonalities, how could you find commonalities if you're not listening? How could you find common ground if you're not listening to the person what's going on next to them? And once I started to feel like people started to listen to me a little bit more, I started to write poetry. I started to perform. I started to talk a little bit more. Because really, at the end of the day, what language do you cry in? What language do you laugh in? See, we all got more things in common than we do that are different if we're just willing to listen to each other. The next step after we determine ourselves to do a little bit more listening is this little thing called, and this is perfect place for it, it's called educate. Everybody say educate. Say it like you mean it, educate. You got to understand, as the late Derek Bell said, that without proper education, you are going to become more of a problem to the things that you're trying to solve. But we live in a world today where we have confirmation bias. We live in a world today where people going online, not looking for information, but looking for affirmation. I heard somebody say that something doesn't have to, nowadays, with social media and fake AI generated, all of that other type of stuff, somebody said nowadays, things don't have to be so, it just has to be said. And if we live in a society now where things don't have to be so, they just have to be said, it means that people can put out anything. And as they say, a lie can travel around the world while the truth is still trying to get its shoes on. So we're in here in a place, in an auditorium, in a facility on a campus that values knowledge in a society that doesn't. That means our work is more profound now more than ever. We have to do a deeper dive of educating ourselves on the issues. We have to do a deeper dive of making sure we have to do a deeper dive of making sure we have factual resources and websites and books and texts and so on and so forth, because the world is only becoming less intelligent as it relates to these things. So what are you doing to really educate yourself on the issues? It's amazing. It's amazing how easy it is to get paid to be ignorant. It's like a whole industry. How ignorant can you be? I'm going to be more ignorant than you. I'm going to say something more vile than you so I can get more clicks, so I can get more views, so I can go viral. And I'm like, since when is a virus a good thing? But anywho, people want to, I saw a guy who is getting sued for some of the misinformation that he put out. And you know what he said in this interview I saw? He was apologetic and everything. And he said, ever since I was a child, my dream has always been to go viral. Is that what we're doing? Is that what we're doing? Last time, when we're reading the intros here, you had Dr. Kizmekia Corbett here. The aspiration was to make medical breakthroughs, cure cancer, help the homeless, help people get housing, end cancer. But now we're raising people whose dream it is to go viral. And it's to go viral at any cost. Because in an attention economy, it doesn't matter. And so we have to bring back the importance of education, the importance of teaching each other so that we can engage in what Glenn Singleton calls these courageous conversations. And I repeat what Singleton says, courageous conversations. Look, I've seen across these campuses I visit the challenges that schools have had talking about issues, particularly after October 7th. And I have seen some schools go deeper into engaged dialogue. Some schools have just shied away from talking about anything. Whether we're talking about the October 7th attacks in Israel, whether we're talking about Black Lives Matter, whether we're talking about what people have just said, we're just not doing that. That's a failure on our part. Because we're supposed to be the ones to teach the next generations how to have the conversation. How can they do it if we shy away from it? See, what I tell my students is, I don't really care what you think about anything. What I care about is how you think. I care about how you're informed. So I tell them, if you come to my class and all you do is watch one network, I don't care what the network is. The most conservative, the most liberal, something in the middle, I don't care. You will fail my class. If all you come in is with talking points and all you care about is repeating talking points, you're not going to do well. So we have to talk about teaching them how to think. For example, I ask my students, and I want you to think about this as well, because I know everybody in here, in some way, shape, or form, has been engaged in a conversation about October 7th, right? And I ask my students, I say, raise your hand. I'm not going to call on you. I'm not going to ask you to share your opinion. And I say, let's say I got 25 students in the class. I say, how many of y'all think what has happened in Israel, Palestine, and Gaza is a genocide, right? Everybody raises their hands. They have an opinion, one way or the other, yes or no, whatever. And then check this out. This is what I do after that. I say, put your hands down. I say, how many of y'all can actually tell me the definition of genocide? And about 3 hands go up. And that's the problem in our society. People got opinions on things they don't know nothing about because they get their ideas and thoughts from social media. And I'm like, do you know that there was a Jewish lawyer by the name of Raphael Lemkin who in 1944 actually came up with that term? It's actually an official term that was adopted by the United Nations in 1948. And there's like categories. Definitions matter. And some people, when you know the definition, you might change your opinion one way or the other. But if we live in a society where people can just throw out terms and make up words and make up their own definitions, we can't get anywhere. How can we have unity when we can't even agree on basic definitions? One of my other books, Lies About Black People, How to Combat Racist Stereotypes and Why It Matters, in the back, I have a whole glossary of just terms that relate to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Why did I do that? Because if I go around this room and ask for how do you define racism, and let's say there's 150 people in here, I may get 95 different definitions. So I talk about the need for organizations and colleges and universities to have what we call a diversity dictionary, where you're working together on these terms. So when challenges come up, you're all starting from the same point of departure. If you start at different points of departure, you're going to arrive at different destinations. This is so much easier when I talk about this as it relates to sports, because everybody knows that, well, we're talking about leading with unity, so I'm not going to talk about the history of Boston and Titletown and all of those other I'm not going to go there. We can talk about that later in the Q&A. But, it's easy with sports because the stats are obvious. The championships are obvious. The rings and all of that stuff is obvious. When it comes to culture, when it comes to diversity, when it comes to about what you're doing right now, if you don't put yourself in positions, if you're a professor in this room or you work with students in any way, shape, or form in this room, you have to be the one to say, hey, you just called that thing Islamophobic. What does that mean? Can we look up the definition together and then have the conversation? You just said something that some people feel is really xenophobic. Can we look that up? It's okay to dial back. It's okay to say stuff. And if you're a student in this room, it's okay in your classrooms to say, well, you just said that thing is misogynistic. How do you define misogyny? Can we take it back? I'd rather be right than be rushed. And it's okay to take the time to focus on being right, and as opposed to being rushed. And what I have found in this work is that when people do dial it back and realize that they've been focusing on misinformation and disinformation and malinformation, then the conversations become a little bit better. So we all have to educate ourselves a little bit more on the issues. And then once we do that, that leads to this thing we call advocate. Everybody say advocate. Say it like you mean it, advocate. You got to use your voice to speak up. And you got to speak up with purpose. What's the use of having all of this knowledge, all of this information, all of this background, and you do nothing with it? You speak for no one. You advocate for no one. How many of you all have a cell phone right now? A couple of people? I know. Some people still got like the trio devices or whatnot. It's all good. It works. It rings. It works, right? How many of us have educated us on the point that the phones that we contain come from genocide in the Congo? How many of us know that the resources and materials that are in our phones come from places where people are being enslaved and are being trafficked sexually? And what are you doing about that? If you didn't know, imagine a land in a place you never heard of, where children grow to soldiers, women raped and murdered, men watch their children die. They ask why. Do they gotta cry for so long? Tears gone, eyes dry. Now imagine that your cell phones causes death and demise. Your PlayStation slayed a nation. Xbox X'd out lives. Your laptop, the backdrop for death so it can function. Your desktop, a weapon of mass destruction. You ain't got to imagine, dude, it's all true. Your TV won't tell you because it's guilty too. Of violence in the Congo, they die so we can live, but you can change it all. And you ain't got to leave your crib. Turn your cell phone to a microphone and speak up. Tell computer companies to back up. You can save 1 million lives and help stop the violence if you can be brave enough to just end the silence. Over 6 million people have died in Congo because we have the largest production of coltan and these things called the 3 T's, tin, tantalum, and tungsten, that make their way into our cell phones, our PlayStations, the tablets that are in our cars that we use for GPSs and the things. People like myself have been speaking up to advocate for that, because I went there and I've met people in refugee camps. I've seen women get sold, or young girls get sold. We're talking about Epstein and everything here. I've met women who have been trafficked. I've met young girls who've been sold by their mothers for 25 cents so they can get by. And a lot of it is so we can have what we have here. Have you educated yourself on that? As I say in my poem there, have you turned your cell phone into a microphone to speak up? You know what's crazy? Like back in the day, people like Mark Twain and W.B. Du Bois and all these, back in the early 1900s, we had this thing called red rubber, where people, the same thing that was happening in Congo now was happening in the early 1900s. But what were they used for? Bicycle tires, all of that. We lost 10 million people. But without the internet, without fax machines, without social media, people back in those days, they spoke up. And they stopped that practice. How is it that we have all of this access to information, all of this telecommunications, but less community, less knowledge? I just threw out one example of the Congo. Have you thought about where your chocolate comes from? We can have that conversation. Have you thought about where the clothing comes from? We can have that conversation. Have you talked about the jewelry? We can have that conversation. You got to understand, there's no such thing as middle ground. You are either part of the solution or you are part of the problem. And when we talk about this thing called advocate, you can advocate for better working conditions for people. You can advocate for saying we don't want our phones to be fueled with conflict minerals. We can advocate to make sure that our clothes don't come from sweatshop labor. We can do those things. Advocacy is extremely important. And that just leads to D, which stands for decide. Everybody say decide. Say it like you mean it, decide. You just got to decide that this is how you're going to go down. You got to decide that every single day you're going to focus on building this community where everybody can indeed be celebrated and not tolerated. You have to decide that, because there are other people who have already decided that a gathering like this is not what they want. They have already decided that if you come into a room speaking Spanish or speaking Swahili or speaking French or Arabic or something, that they don't want that. They've already decided that. They've already made their decisions. What decisions are you going to make? What decisions are you going to make to speak up more? What decisions are you going to make to listen more? What decisions are you going to make to educate yourself more, to advocate for more, to decide to do this? If you don't do it, who will? Acting with purpose matters. We need more activists as opposed to act as ifs. You know, we have people who act as if they care. They act, you know, they change their social media profile. They make it look a particular way to highlight a particular person or a particular issue, and then they go right back on to watching the game. They go right back on to doing whatever else that they want to do that they were doing that day. But let me tell y'all something. In a lot of spaces that I go to, a lot of things that I read, and I know you all do, I've read all of this as well, people talk about this thing we call allyship. And I'm going to say, if we want to go to this next level, if we really want to lead with unity, if we really want to act with purpose, we need to get rid of that term. We need to go from, and it was good while it lasted. It was nice. It was awesome. You know, good couple of decades. But I would challenge you to go from allyship to partnership. There's a difference. You see, allies, and this is all terminology I've used before. It's not like I'm some like, oh my gosh, you know, profound statement. I'm just thinking about these things. When I would say these terms over the years, allyship started to become problematic to me because allies are like fans who go to a game, right? They go and watch the game, and whether their team wins or loses, they go home, and their life goes on. There are a lot of people who are not black, who are all about Black Lives Matter for like a year and a half. And then that thing we call diversity fatigue set in, and they went back to whatever they were doing. But partnership is the mindset, as the quotation says, is none of us are free until all of us are free. Partners are not in the stands. Partners are on the court. Understanding we all win the ring or nobody wins the ring on our team. And so we need to go to that next level to this thing we call partnership. If we really want to create that beloved community, if we really want to put ourselves in a space where everybody can indeed be celebrated and not tolerated. So what are you willing to do to become a bigger and better partner today? That is something that is also important because when we do that, let me give an example. In my Lies About Black People book, I have a test called the Rule of Seven. And the Rule of Seven is 7 questions that you should ask yourself to see how committed you are, seriously committed you are to this thing we call diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, sometimes you can do this individually. You can also do this in your teams, in your office. Anybody can get away with 2 questions about how committed they are to diversity. But when you talk about 7 questions that you can make up on your own, it's a little bit different. For example, what do the 7 authors of the last 7 books you read look like? You listen to podcasts. What do the 7 podcasts that you listen to the most look like? You watch television. What does the cast of the last 7 shows that you watch look like? You go to plays. What does the cast of the last 7 plays you've gone to look like? You're in a position to hire. What do the last 7 people that you hired look like? What do your 7 closest neighbors look like? Well, who are your 7 best friends? What do they look like? You got kids in your life, grandkids, nieces, nephews, whatever. What do the last 7 toys that you bought for them look like? What does the cast of the shows that they watch look like? So when we get to 7, we start to see if we're really about this life. Or if we're act as ifs. And I've done this exercise in some places, and some people just start crying because they realize that they fully weren't serious about that. Once we get past this lead, we get to this thing called grow. And when we talk about grow towards your greatness later, it's that idea of give, release, overcome, and win. In honor of this event, I'm actually releasing Grow Towards Your Greatness as an audiobook as well. So we can actually, in about 5 days, so we can start taking this message with us every single way that we go, everywhere that we go. And so if we put ourselves in the mindset that we really want to lead with unity, that we really want to act with purpose, my hope is that you will take one of these steps, one of these principles, and just see how you can enhance it. Just see how in the communities that you're in, maybe you're around people who can use this model of listen, educate, advocate, and decide. Maybe with them, maybe you can just talk about how we can do that next level. My mindset has always been next level people do next level things. And we just got to give ourselves permission to do that. I'm a big fan of affirmations, so before we go into our Q&A right now, can we do another one? Awesome. And if you want them, email me, whatever. I love affirmations. I'll send you a whole bunch. You can just take them and run with it. It's all good. Repeat after me. I know if I believe, I can and will achieve. The past is the past. I will no longer regret it. I will focus on this gift, which I call the present. I will get out of my own way and live my best life starting today. If I focus on my dreams and not my sorrows, my trials today will be my testimony tomorrow. See, these are things that you should be saying to yourself. We got to have some powerful testimonies about leading with unity and acting with purpose. We're doing 16 years in doing this. This is amazing. And when I got the invitation, I was like, wait a minute. They got diversity in the title. Like nowadays, you know what I'm saying? Because everybody's, folks are switching up. They're talking about, like, they'll say anything else but diversity. So as soon as I got the invite, regardless of what I had going on, I knew I was going to be here. Because you all decided to give yourself permission to do this. You believed that if you set the mindset out, you could achieve this. And that is powerful. And so before I want to close after our Q&A, I'm going to close with one more poem. But I did want to take some time right now to just stop and see if anybody had any questions, comments, pushback, feedback about anything that I'm saying right now. And we have microphones. Are they set up somewhere? Where are they? If we can, the microphones, they're going to be coming around. And so if we can just use the microphones so we can make sure that everybody can hear us, that would be awesome. I think you might do, there we go. House lights make it so much easier. I'm a professor too, so I've learned all about wait time. So I'm completely fine if
I don't really have a question. I just want to say thank you. This is like profoundly wonderful, and I'm challenged, I'm encouraged, and I'm grateful.
Thank you. I received that. Thank you so much. I do appreciate that. Thank you. Right, I think in the front.
I wanted to add on.
Sorry, no. You got to represent you. We got high school in the house. Where you from? High school?
I'm Alicia, and I go to North Penn High School, and I'm here with the Equity Counselor at North Mako Technical Career Center. And I wanted to add on and say that was a wonderful speech. I did not know that was in hands. And I wanted to ask you, when did you know that you could do what you do, like talk, speak freely? Like, when in your life did you say, I want to do this as like a hobby or like to teach people?
It's a great question. So for me, when I was younger, I would say like around elementary, middle school, maybe more so middle school, my parents would organize these Kwanzaa celebrations in the neighborhood. And I have 8 brothers and sisters, and so everybody had to do something. And my parents would have me and my sister, Shaomba, we would recite poetry. And getting introduced to Dr. Maya Angelou and Dr. Nikki Giovanni was really important in my life because once I heard them, they were the only people I started reading outside of my parents that were telling me that Africa was beautiful. And so before I started writing my own poetry, I started memorizing their poetry and reciting it. And I was like, well, I'm reciting their stuff enough, maybe I can start doing my own. So in high school is when I started doing speech competitions and things like that. And by the time I got to college, I started doing open mics. So I would say that middle school area, that was really powerful, especially after 7th grade. My father came back after what he dealt with. And so him coming back and seeing what him and my mom went through as well, it inspired me to just want to do better. I wanted to make them proud. I wanted to make my ancestors proud. And I just realized that through poetry, I can do this. There was a time when I rap too, as you hopefully heard. There was a time when I first started rapping, I was cursing a lot. And then I started doing more poetry because I realized that it's so easy to curse. I could do a whole album if you just said I can say whatever I want, like some of these guys out here. But with poetry, I had to be a little bit more creative because I had to keep people's attention without a strict rhyme pattern. So that's kind of what led to my trajectory of doing both. So I would say like middle school, high school is when I started to really get into this. Yep. Did I answer your question? All right, awesome. I think we have a question up here or comment.
Hi, I'm Jen. I'm an academic advisor and a professor here at Monco, and the entire thing was incredible, but I think what really is sticky with me right now is your discussion on act as if over action, and how easy it is in this day and age to get wrapped up in your everyday life, your job, your community, and not focus on your beliefs and what you'd like to see change. I mean, I am a volunteer at the local Holocaust Awareness Museum based on my family's history, and I try as much as I can to work with them. And as you mentioned earlier, that's just one of the many different things that we need to remember and make sure that the next generation remembers and knows what's going on. And it scares me, like you said, on what social media and the other all types of media is sharing with us. And I just think it's incredible what you're doing and how important it is that this country remembers that what we were built on, what our original principles were, and what we need to continue with the upcoming generations.
It's extremely important. So the book that we're talking about today, Growth Towards Your Greatness, my company used to be called Free Your Mind Publishing. Then as I started speaking more, I wanted something that was more encompassing than just publishing. So I was meeting with a woman, and she was talking about, the Holocaust and various things. And one of the terms that she brought up was the term upstander. And people, who fought against what was happening. So when she said it, it just clicked. So that's why I changed my company name for Free Your Mind Publishing to Upstander International. So because for me, when I heard that mindset that comes out of, Jewish community of never again, and the idea of never again meaning never again for anybody, well, how do you do that? Well, you do that if you become upstanders. And so for like 20, 25 years, I've been working with, several Jewish organizations, like Jewish World Watch and ICAR, and several other ones. And one of the reasons was that, but also what I appreciated about those organizations was that they actually meant never again for anybody, and they were advocating to stop genocide in Congo. And so that's when the synergy started coming, because my philosophy is that if you believe in human rights, you believe in human rights for everybody. And so when you talk about that, people have a vested interest in keeping us divided. They have a vested interest. When I hear people talk about the importance of, fighting anti-Semitism, and my mindset is you can't fight anti-Semitism without fighting Islamophobia. You can't do that. You can't fight, xenophobia without fighting racism towards, people born in this country. We have to do it all. And I believe we have enough energy to do it all. I believe we have enough passion to do it all. And I believe that there are more of us than there are of the haters. And the anti-Semites and the Islamophobes, and the homophobes. I believe there are more of us, but we just gotta have that courage to speak up, and the courage comes from community. That's why I'm so happy to be here today. I think up front. Okay, then up front.
Hi, I'm Catherine Carter. I'm one of the trustees. My question is, earlier you used an example where you talked about you were getting ready to do a professional development at a school.
Yes.
With Obama. What happened?
So I talked about Obama. How could you not? Look, if you remember that time, everybody in here looks so young, so maybe some of y'all weren't there during that time. But, his opponent was McCain and Sarah Palin, thank you. Look, if McCain and Palin won the election, I would be showing my daughters a picture of, look, this is the first female vice president. I wouldn't say, if I completely disagree with her politics on anything or whatever, I'm not gonna celebrate that. It's not about that, it's about the representation. So, okay, Obama wins, we have an opportunity to showcase to America the first black president. If McCain and Palin win, we have an opportunity, not just to my daughters, to my son, well, he wasn't born yet, but if he was born at that time, my son can also see that. that we have a female vice president. Oh, this is a college. That means I get to give a quiz. No? Who was the first non-white vice president of the United States? Exactly, it is my point. How many of y'all wanted to say Kamala Harris? Because that's like the easy one, right? Some of y'all were thinking, or at least that was your first thought. First non-white vice president was Charles Curtis, Native American, under Hoover, in the 30s, was also a senator. Why, with all our degrees and background and knowledge, we don't know that? I didn't know it until after Kamala won, because all of the news stories, first person of color, vice president, blah, blah, blah. It's Napoleon. History is a lie agreed upon. Why did people have a vested interest to not let us know that we already had a non-white vice president? That's what I'm talking about, the work we got to do. If you don't do it, we lose it. So for all of our knowledge, that basic fact, we don't know it. How can we teach it to our students? People don't want us to know that. Can we come to the front for our last question? Then I'm going to end with a poem for you all. Right here front. To our emerita here.
Good morning, Margot Clark. I had so many flashbacks listening to you. I was along with Al Sharpton, Andrew Young, Julian Bond. They were my cohorts. Mm-hmm. But my question to you is, when you speak to your students, they will tell you, I'm listening to you, but do they really hear you?
That's a great question. And we know every professor wants to say, of course. But so I believe that they do from stories I hear. Some of my mentees in the schools have been some of the most conservative students who, to some who are the most liberal, and everybody in between. I had one student who, on his final paper for my class called Intercultural Communication, he said, this class made me realize that I'm a racist. So I figured he was listening. I was like, should I advertise that? Come to my class, he might realize you're a racist. That wasn't part of the plan. But he said, on his first day of class, when he walked in and saw me dressed like this, didn't know anything about me, he said, he wrote this in the papers. He was being honest. He said, when I first saw you, I said, why did I get the angry black male professor? Didn't know me. Now, if he saw some of my posts, he might have seen some anger, I don't know. But, and then he said he started just reflecting on his history. And he's like, when I was a kid, I can recall watching TV with my uncle, and I was 5 years old. And when we saw a black person on television, my uncle would say, you see that person? That's an N-word. Like, he just started tracing all of the things most of our experiences with culture and race and religion with other groups are negative, so we suppress them. But they always come back out. So I feel like they're listening. My next book that's coming out in the fall is called Trigger Words. It's about how leaders use language to keep us divided and how we can come back together. And so I've been bringing some of those principles into class. Like, can you tell me what the difference between Latino and Hispanic is? Do you understand what that means? Like, can you break down some of these different things? And so they're realizing certain words are designed to trigger people. And so as they explore that and their own identity, I feel like most of them are listening, and I can primarily tell it from when I read their work. But, we just keep moving one way or the other, right? So I want to share one more poem with you all. I really appreciate this. I'm so glad I got to spend the entire day with you. Thank you so much for this invitation. You have an incredible president, and y'all, we read my bio and people say they're impressed by stuff, but when you talk about, like, that lead model, who's doing it better? When we met, she said, I was doing your research. Well, I was like, I did my research too. On you. We're sitting with somebody, a first-time college graduate, now leading a college. First-generation college graduate, now leading a college. This is what we talk about, acting with purpose. Can we give a round of applause? That's just amazing. It means a lot. So this poem is entitled Grow Towards Your Greatness. I took the themes from the book and I made it into a short poem that I want to share. Are we all good? Are we all good? Yeah. I don't know. Y'all need one more affirmation. Somebody repeat after me. Today I give myself permission to live life on my own mission. I will live life by my own rules. And no longer listen to liars, haters, and fools. I will take control of my own destiny. And let no one get the best of me. For if it is meant to be, it is up to me. This poem is entitled Grow Towards Your Greatness. Here we go. They say that greatness is a choice. But what have you chosen? You've been frozen in time and broken in mind. For too long, the same song playing in your head. Living in breath, but better off dead. But who said that you didn't have the power? Who said this is not your hour? You've been showered with a steady stream of words that kill your dreams. But since you're still breathing, then someone has lied to you. Tried to deny you of your own potential inside you. If you just decide to, let no one deride you. Don't even let them get beside you as you unearth the new you. Stop listening to naysayers and decide to do you. No more pity parties, sob stories, and boo-hoos. If no one told you that you're great, then let me be the first to. If you develop the thirst to drink from faith's fountain, you'll develop the might to move mountains. You see, we remove tons of dirt to find 1 ounce of gold. So we'll ask you to remove tons of hurt and just uncover 1 ounce of your soul. You'll set yourself on a true path of excellence, getting out of your passenger seat and driving your own car, reaching for the moon, but maybe only landing among the stars. You see, you have greatness inside you, but you must choose to be great. Blaze a path of excellence, leaving fear in your wake. All you need is already inside you. You just must believe in yourself. Grow towards your greatness and discover your true wealth. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
How about one more round of applause for Dr. Dibinga? Thank you for sharing your inspirational messages and reminding us that we still have some work to do. And it's been our honor to have you here today to be our keynote. For those of you who brought copies of his book, Grow Towards Your Greatness, he will be available to sign copies in the gallery until around 11:30, following as we close up. There are some free copies at the registration table of the book for first come and first serve, so make sure you grab one. We also invite you to return to the theater at 3 o'clock today for a book discussion on Grow Towards Your Greatness, moderated by one of our very own Monco students, Sloan Harker. And so I invite you back at 3 o'clock. I would like to extend a huge thank you to everyone who played a role in making the Presidential Symposium possible. Your dedication and hard work brought this event to life. Thank you, everyone, for your time and engagement to this important conversation. And until next time, I'm Dr. Jared Brown.